Good morning, everyone. What an incredibly glorious day. Look at this great weather. What a great day to be in America. What a great day to be in America. Good morning. My name is Senator Gilbert Cedillo. I have the incredible privilege and honor of being the chair of the Latino Legislative Caucus. And I'm here today joined by my colleagues, no less than the President of the California State Senate, Darrell Steinberg.
All right. Steinberg.
The chair of the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, Warren Furutani. The chair of the California Black Legislative Caucus, Sandra Swanson. The chair of the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Caucus, Tom Amiano. And other colleagues of the legislature, Ed Hernandez, Kevin De Leon, Joe Cotto, and others will join us as time permits. We also have an incredible array of community leaders like our sheriff, former police chief rather. Let's keep these governmental jurisdictions. Let's keep the powers of government appropriate today. Our former police chief here in Sacramento, Arturo Venegas, who has become a national leader on this issue. I've seen him all over the country speaking out on this issue. Ken Macias, the chairman of the Board of California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Al Hernandez is here. Melinda Guzman Moore, one of our top attorneys in the area and a trustee for the California State University system. A whole array of people. We have the organization PICO, faith-based organization, is with us today. PICO, thank you for being here. And we're here today to announce our resolution, which calls for a boycott of Arizona because of their efforts to go forward with legislation that we understand to be completely unconstitutional. But more than that, because it's divisive in its very nature. It was about 158 years ago, almost to this week, that a senatorial candidate from the state of Illinois talked about how a house divided cannot stand. And we say the same thing about the law of Arizona today, that it's divisive, and that to the extent that it leads to other legislation, that it divides our nation. And that we haven't seen this type of legislation or perspective or viewpoint since the Dred Scott decision. Nothing as dehumanizing as that decision, nor anything as divisive as Plessy v. Ferguson. The type of separate but equal cannot stand in this nation. And so we're here today in unity. And we're here today because what's at stake is the very nature of the democracy of our country, its constitutional foundation, and the unity of this great nation. And so we've brought together today leaders of our community, leaders of California, people who have been elected by the great state and the great people of California, to say to Arizona, division is not the way to go. That we must be united as a nation, and that you can't break the law to protest a broken law, that you must comply with the Constitution. Our nation cannot afford you going your separate way. We can't have 50 states try to have 50 different immigration policies. We must have one policy. It's too important. It affects our international relations, it affects our national security, and it affects our economic stability. And so while we are here today to announce a boycott of Arizona, we are also here today to call upon Congress to act. At this very moment, conservatives and evangelicals around the nation are engaged in a national phone conference. At this very moment, progressives and faith-based people are engaged in a national phone conference And at this very moment, we are here to say the very same thing. Congress, you must act, and Mr. President, you must lead, because we cannot have more Arizonas. We can't have more division. We must have an immigration policy that protects our national security, that ensures economic stability, and that ensures the unity of this great nation. And so I'm here today to introduce the President of the Senate Pro Tem, a very illustrious leader, hometown boy of Sacramento, the Honorable, the thoughtful Darrell Steinberg.
All right. Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you, Senator Cedillo, for being such a champion of civil and human rights, and thank you to all of my colleagues, and especially thank you to the young people who are standing behind us here today. We talk to our children about the importance of remembering history. And when we study history, we always ask ourselves, I ask myself, what would I have done? I ask myself, what would I have done had I been a white Southerner in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s? What would have I done during the Second World War when our country decided that it was okay to intern Japanese Americans? What would I have done in the 1920s when we passed the Chinese Railway Act, limiting Chinese Americans from the opportunity to work in our state? What would I have done? And what am I doing now as the struggle for equal rights for gays and lesbians continues to be fought? That question is being asked of us here today. Not what would we have done, but what will we do? There's only one answer to that question. Anytime a group of people is set aside and set apart because of the color of their skin, their country of origin, their sexual orientation, their gender, their disability, anything other than that which has to do with their character and who they are, we must stand up against that kind of law. Right. Now, the Arizona law, the proponents of the Arizona law don't tell you the whole story. They tell you, well, this is only directed at those who are not in this country legally. Not true. There's one defining characteristic that allows a law enforcement official to stop someone and ask them for their papers. It's whether or not their skin is browner than my skin. That is not what this country is about. That's not what our struggle is about. That's not what our history is about. And so I strongly support Senator Cedillo, the Latino Caucus, the other caucuses' call for a boycott, not to harm the people of Arizona, but to be one part of a movement to change this law, to eliminate this law from the books. That's what we must do, and that's what we will do. Thank you very much.
A longtime champion for civil rights, an icon of Southern California, the embodiment of the movement for Asian Pacific Islander civil rights, the Honorable Assemblymember Warren Fortani.
Warren. Ladies and gentlemen and sisters and brothers, we just got done with graduation season. And I don't know, some of you media might have seen the graduation ceremonies at the University of California, CSU, and community colleges across the state, where honorary degrees were conferred on Japanese Americans whose education, higher education, was cut short in 1942. With the support of our friends and our colleagues here on this dais, last year we passed AB 37, which granted those degrees, and it was amazing to see these older Japanese Americans, average age about 88, firm of body, walking up on the stage, or if they needed a walker or a wheelchair, they got up there to the standing ovation to their other graduates to get their degrees. And the reason we had to do this fix, to correct this wrong, to finish some unfinished business, was because of a similar law back in 1942. It was called Executive Order 9066 that determined anybody that was 1/16th, at least 1/16th Japanese American, had to leave the Western Defense Zone and were put in concentration camps throughout the most unhospitable parts of the United States. The reason we did this bill wasn't to have a stroll down memory lane. It wasn't an exercise in nostalgia. It was the reality that if we don't learn from past mistakes, we're bound to repeat them. In Arizona, its law is an example of that, whereby with a law, in a time of potential hysteria because of economic difficulties, in search of someone to blame the problems on, you know what we call that, scapegoating, they have come up with something that once again will abridge, is contrary to the law of the land. And we are beyond that time where we have to walk around and wear stinking badges that say we belong here. We're well beyond the time where, because of the color of your skin, the texture of your hair, the slant of your eye, that you have to be suspect relative to being legal, relative to being an American citizen at this point in time in our history. So we stand with the Latino Caucus to call for a boycott of Arizona till the legislature and the governor come to their senses in that state and realize you can't break a law in order to do law. So with that, the call is out to the president, to the federal government, to our sisters and brothers in both the House and the Senate to say, let's fix this doggone thing so we don't end up with a patchwork of bills and laws throughout this country that are predicated on hysteria, predicated on racism, and predicated on all those things we know are contrary to being an American. Thank you very much. Amen.
We've also been joined by Betty Williams, president of the Sacramento chapter of the NAACP, Bassam Al Qaeda, Council of the Islamic Americans Relations, Diana Rodriguez, Sacramento City Unified School District, is visiting us from Mexico City, and Lino Perez from SEIU, the Sacramento Central Labor Council, is also with us. Thank you for joining us and standing with us at this critical moment. A champion of civil rights, the chair of the Black Caucus, the leader in this state, the African American community. Please welcome Sanjay Swanson.
Joining me is the vice chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, Senator Kern Price. And we are here in support of the boycott of Arizona. It's very easy, as the senator said earlier, for us to say that if I lived in 1920, I would have fought injustice. 1820, I would have fought injustice. 2010 becomes our generation's responsibility to fight injustice. This is injustice. And what next? We have to ask ourselves, what next? In what direction does this law go? And what principles does it stand on? Who is next? Where it's clear that our children are next. The children of immigrants are next. And should we stand silent we should always be prepared to defend our children, and we should always be prepared to fight the battles that are specific to our generation in this struggle for human justice and supporting the fundamental principles that our democracy is founded on. With that, I would ask the senator to make comments.
Thank you. I'm proud to stand with my brothers and sisters here, not just Latinos, but all men and women who want to do the right thing. We understand what's at stake here. We cannot allow a law to separate us, to divide us, to make determinations based on the color of skin or the height or the weight. What next? I know all too well how skin color can be used as a tool against. We cannot let that occur. We must fight hard, we must fight strong to make sure there's equal justice and equal protection. We've got to support the boycott of Arizona. It's a painful thing, but it's an opportunity for us to step up to the plate and demonstrate that we're not going to stand by, let injustices occur without doing something about it. And so we stand here in solidarity with all people who want to do the right thing, who understand the importance of constitutional rights and constitutional responsibilities. We support this effort. We will continue to fight, and we are with you in solidarity. Thank you.
Well, the movie star of our little group here, a champion for civil rights, a man who is not shy to controversy, a man who stands up tall, a giant, when issues heat up the day, the chair of the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Caucus, our leader from the great city of San Francisco, Assemblymember Tom Amiano.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really proud to be here. You know, speaking of movies, there was a movie called Spartacus once, and the Roman government wanted to find Spartacus and wanted to kill him. So there was a crowd just like this, and the Roman general said, which one of you is Spartacus? And everyone stood up and said, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm undocumented. No, you're undocumented. If we stand together with that kind of solidarity, we can beat this back. Lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual community knows the sting of laws like this. It's been suggested that we be quarantined. There are gay families who are suffering when their lovers or their partners who are undocumented are taken away and deported. There is a common ground here that we all must swell up to fight. Make no mistake about this. This is a pogrom. This is an eradication of effort. We don't want people to go back to plantation politics. If you're good enough to clean my toilet in my house, but you can't live in my house, then that's criminal. That's hypocritical. So I stand in solidarity with you today, and I tell you that the boycott is not something we should quibble about. We don't hurt people. It's the same parallel as when we did the McBride Principles in South Africa or the economic sanctions against Myanmar or Burma. You don't hurt real people when you boycott because they are already hurt. They are being dehumanized. The boycott stands as an icon, stands as a tool. I back it entirely, and I know any time that there is a need that my community will stand tall with all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'd like to go forward with a few voices from the community, if we can, just briefly. A state trustee of the California State University and local attorney, Melinda Guzman Moore.
Good morning. My name is Melinda Guzman. I am an American citizen with constitutional rights in every state of this nation, including the Republic of Arizona. The problems with the Arizona 1070 is the words reasonable suspicion and may. They lead to disparate treatment of individuals based on the color of their skin, based on how they look. To the governor of the state of Arizona, we will not wait. As we wait for this law to be declared unconstitutional, that governor has signed legislation to declare unconstitutional and illegal ethnic studies in the classroom. We know that classrooms should be sanctities. They should be sanctuaries for individual thought and learning. They are now on the attack of children. Children who are born in the United States of America, one nation under God, to parents of illegal immigrants, are now being chastised as being un-American. I join with Senator Cedillo, members of the Senate and Assembly, in supporting the state of California as a taxpayer. I do not want my taxpayer dollars to be used to defend, support, or implement this unconstitutional law, and I ask all Californians to join in this effort. We are one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Please welcome the Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Bassam Al Qaeda.
Today we come here, African American, Asian, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, united, and we actually thank Arizona for that. We thank Arizona for bringing the people together. Every time those politicians, the peddlers of hate, try to attack the people, we will unite. Doesn't matter against what community, we will always come together. I also want to address, right here in the audience, right over there, we have the Tea Party Express Chairman, Mark Williams, who's been peddling hate against the API community, against the Latino community, against our community. But you know what? We will protect, as civil rights organizations, we will protect his right to do that. We will protect his constitutional rights. But what we say is that your movement has lost because the American people have come out against hate. They've stand united against hate, against any community. And that is the beauty about America. The majority of Americans have rejected you and your racist movement, and just go on. You're going to keep moving to one community after the other. And so we come together, and we will always come together. We came together, Prop 187, 209, when we were in high school. We will come together, any state, whether it's California, Arizona, we will come together united and speak for the people and defend the rights of all. And you know what? Latinos are growing in population. And some people fear that. But you know what? I don't fear that. Because the Latino community has always stood for justice. For the Latino community, for all of Americans. And that's something that we honor. And we want to see increased Latino participation. And we want to see a Latino governor of Arizona, and that will happen one day. Thank you.
The new legislation in Arizona poses tremendous challenges for the law enforcement community. It's a community that's divided in its opposition and support of that law. We should hear from someone who is a professional in law enforcement, someone who understands the importance of good community relations in policing, who understands the responsibility of public safety, and the important role that immigration reform plays in creating better public safety for all of us and ensuring national security. Please welcome our former Chief of Police of Sacramento, Art, or as we call him, Arturo Venegas.
Thank you, Senator. Ladies and gentlemen, for the record, the Arizona Chiefs of Police, right from the beginning, even before she signed it, said, you know what? This is an unjust law. We have no way of enforcing it. In fact, even with the amendments that was made to the original law, still calls for officers to profile. The Arizona law creates two things that are very important, and everybody has talked about the lessons of history. Here's what law enforcement has said. For us to be secured as a community, for us to be secured as a nation, we need everybody to participate, and they cannot have a segment of the community to be afraid. The other thing that they said, our oath of office calls for the defense of the Constitution. In fact, this law puts the law enforcement community by the way, as well as the courts, right smack in the middle of having to enforce the law or they get sued. And if the officers, as well as the court, choose not to do so, they will get sued. So it's damn if they do, damn if they don't. Here's what the chiefs told the Attorney General of the United States. As the major city chiefs, they said, you know what, we need your intervention because we see this as a constitutional crisis that has the ability of moving to other states, as 13 or so other states right now consider this type of legislation. And in fact, if you want law enforcement to be successful, we must have a policy that comes from Washington and not from 50 states. The lessons of history is this, as spoken not only through history, but lessons that we must learn or we will repeat. That any time that you use law enforcement in the courts in enforcing what sometimes may be considered popular laws, you end up with inhuman treatment and injustices as they violate the constitutional rights of people. You cannot do that. And in fact, for us as law enforcement officials, our oath of office says, I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and of our states. And when you are forcing officers to violate that, they violate their oath of office. We support the efforts here and also call for Congress and the President to assume the leadership role. And by the way, we also call for those senators and members of the House that are Republicans that cannot condemn a broken immigration system and then refuse to engage. If we are really to have a system that works so that the California law or the Arizona state laws or this resolution are not needed, then they have to engage and bring about comprehensive immigration reform across the country. Thank you.
Quiero terminar la conferencia de prensa, pero antes de eso quiero presentar mi colega Kevin de León. Pero antes de él, todos somos inmigrantes, todos somos americanos. Y es súper importante saber eso. Hay una persona que está con nosotros que no es inmigrante, y es los indios, ¿no? Y quiero presentar una persona por un segundo breve de Arizona, y son nativos, ¿no? Son indio de acá. We're going to close the press conference. I do want to say a few words for the Spanish language press. I will introduce my colleague, Kevin de Leon, who will wrap up for us in Spanish. And I wanted to say we are all Americans, and as Americans, we are all immigrants, with one exception, and that is the Native American community of this nation. And so we're very fortunate to have one representative with us from the Native American community. He is Yaqui, he is Native American, he comes from Arizona. He is a person who stands before us with an incredible moral authority, who understands the importance of this type of legislation, and has joined us for a brief second. Please welcome Ricardo Tapia.
I greet you in my language, and I just wanted to say that, just want to remind you, our people have been here for over 40,000 years. We, under the laws of atrocities, have been victims of genocide. For over 500 years, our people were killed because of our skin color, because of our language. So we relate to what happened to the Chinese, to the Japanese, and what's going on in Arizona right now. It's complex. It affects our sovereignty. It affects our civil rights for our people. So we stand here in solidarity with the people of Arizona and the community here that's doing this. We want to thank Senator Cedillo for his courage in coming forward and taking the championship role in this very important issue. Thank you.
Bravo. Let me say that it's so critical for us. We do not go forward with this boycott without due consideration, without prudence, without an appreciation for the magnitude and the significance of this. But at the end of the day, the resolution to this is immigration reform. We call upon Congress to act and we call upon the president to lead. It was a commitment the president made. It's a commitment that must be fulfilled by this president. So we are at the point where we must act, because, as Martin Luther King once said, an injustice to anyone is a threat to justice. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But with that, let me conclude by bringing up my colleague for the Spanish language press. Quiero decir que en el fin de la día de que es más importante es una reforma migratoria. Necesitamos acciones del Congreso y el liderazgo del presidente Obama. Nosotros estamos esperando a él para cumplir su palabra, para cumplir su promesa. Con eso quiero presentar, para cumplir esta conferencia de prensa, mi colega, el representante de Los Ángeles, el senador futuro de mi distrito 22, es honorable el Kevin de León.
Muy buenos días a cada uno de ustedes, hermanos y hermanas. Antes que nada, un saludo muy cordial, un abrazo muy fuerte, solidaridad a cada uno de ustedes, a mis colegas reunidos hoy día, pero particularmente al senador Gil Cedillo, que es un gran campeón. A la misma vez quisiera yo reconocer Joe Cotto, también, que fue el ex presidente del Caucus Latino, también un gran luchador y líder de los derechos plenos de los emigrantes. Gil Cedillo y Joe Cotto, Tama Miano, igual el Hernández, que estaba presente, y cada uno de ustedes, los hombres y mujeres colectivamente, latinos, afroamericanos, asiáticos, árabes, americanos. Quisiera darle las gracias a salir a las calles, a hacer escuchar sus voces, porque sus voces, sus opiniones, sus pensamientos todavía cuentan aquí en este país. Los Estados Unidos, a pesar que parece que muchos, especialmente en el estado de Arizona, lo han olvidado, que fue construido con el sudor de la frente de millones y de millones de migrantes, con el sudor de nuestras frentes y con el sudor de frentes de generaciones previas. Con este sudor hemos ganado mucho espacio político, hemos ganado nuestro lugar en este gran país, hemos ganado mucho, pero nadie nos los quitará aquí en este país. Y compañeros, colectivamente damos un llamado a todo el país, a lo largo y ancho de este país, que ni un solo paso para atrás con esta ley de Arizona. Es a través de nuestras acciones concretas, proactivas, pacíficas, que estamos manteniendo firme nuestro repudio total de las acciones mediocres de Arizona. Pero más allá de un lema o un dicho popular, la realidad es que nosotros aquí estamos, aquí nos quedamos y no nos vamos.